Rule number 3 in Sabrok's laws for being an honorable gamer is know the game / run your own stuff. This doesn't necessarily apply in all games because some games are so simple that it doesn't apply. And of course, there are varying degrees of how much we expect people to abide by this rule based on their personality and familiarity with the game. But even if you are the kind of person, well, if you're the kind of person that can't be expected to follow this rule, you're probably not watching this channel, to be honest. I think people who watch my videos are those who care about the rules, care about learning the game, care about being a better gamer, to borrow a phrase from Day 9. The idea is that a courteous and honorable gamer will arrive at the game having read the rules. Maybe if it's their first time, maybe they don't fully understand the rules, but they'll have at least read them to get that sort of baseline understanding. And as they're being taught, they can correlate what they're being told with what they've already read, and it will stick better. They'll have made an effort. They will show up having learned the game, having read the rules, and then at the game, they will do their best to run their own stuff. So in a board game, that is, you're running your own little tableau. You are managing yourself on your turn. In an RPG, that means you know your character's abilities and don't need to constantly consult with the GM or the other players about what it is that your guy can do and how that works. Now, newer players obviously are going to need some help, and there's no shame in asking for help if you need help. But this law is about making the effort. You make the effort to learn what your side of the game, whatever part of the game is that you're responsible for. You make an effort to know how to manage that. Because every moment that you spend getting someone else to help you run your stuff is a moment that you're not playing, so you're dragging the game down there, and you're pulling another player out of their own headspace to help you. Which is not to be shame on you for needing help. Not that at all. It's, if that situation is avoidable, you want to avoid it. Because it slows the game down. It probably detracts from the fun of the other players, because now they're managing your stuff for you. And that's not really what I think most games are designed to do. I give the example of Twilight Imperium. It's heavy on my mind. I have a Twilight Imperium game later today. Right in there, actually, as a matter of fact. Most people, their first time, get really intimidated by Twilight Imperium rules. You're going to show up and not really understand things. But the hope is that after a few turns, after going through the motions of the game a few times, you're going to start to figure it out. You're gonna see the patterns, and you're gonna be able to be like, okay, I know what I'm gonna be doing on my turn. And that's another part of it, is knowing, thinking about the game and planning ahead as much as the game will allow you, because not all games allow you to plan ahead. One of the things that gets people really tripped up specifically in Twilight Imperium is the tactical action. It's kind of a big, complicated thing, and there's a reason why there's a reference, a list of all the steps of the tactical action on every player's game materials, because you kind of have to go through it in order. This throws people off a lot, and I have found that I have to explain it and re-explain it and re-explain it kind of a lot. Which is it's not a matter of it being annoying. It's a matter of you have to understand this function of the, or this aspect of the game to be able to make intelligent decisions. And so if you don't, what are you doing in the game? What you don't want is a situation where where like someone else is basically playing for you because they understand the rules and you don't. You don't want that. That is, and if you're doing that with any kind of intentionality, like, oh, I don't really care about the rules, I'm just here to have a good time. And then someone else ends up playing the game for you or making decisions for you because you don't know how to make these decisions. You don't know how to interact with the game rules and the mechanics. In that case, you are being a burden on the table. And again, this comes down to making an effort. If you are making an effort, that does not apply to you. Don't feel like you're a burden just because you can't understand the rules if you're trying. If you're trying, you're good. Because clearly that group of friends wants you to be there. And some games are more complicated than others. There are... Yeah, this rule is not that complicated. I'm not sure I could fill out like a full-length video on the rest of this. It's manage your own stuff. If you are, so here's what really gets me. Here's actually what really gets me. Y'all know who Puffin Forest is. I'm going to call this guy out right now. He has a video about 4th edition where he recounts the story of him and his group playing 4th edition. I think he said it was for the first time. And it came down to everyone just doing basic attacks because they didn't know what their character could do. And they were relying entirely on the DM to manage like ongoing statuses and remember triggers and everything like that. That is terrible. That is a full group of people who are breaking this law and not being honorable gamers because they were relying on another player to remember their own stuff. You shouldn't do that. Everyone needs to share the load of the game, particularly in a rules-heavy, kind of mechanically crunchy game like 4th edition, where there's a lot of stuff to keep track of. You need to keep track of your own stuff because it is unreasonable for everyone at the table to expect one person to do so. So this is where we fold it back into like RPGs, because like, again, these laws are... they are for all kinds of tabletop gaming. They often have special applications for like RPGs. The GM probably knows the game better than everyone else. Probably, not always. But the GM already has a large amount of like rules load, mental load that they have to manage over the course of the game. Expecting them to run your character as well and remember your triggers and your abilities, fully unreasonable. That's why I straight up tell some of my players, like, if they have triggers for certain circumstance, like any kind of like circumstantial ability that's going to trigger automatically, I tell my players straight up, you have to remember this. Technically speaking, I am allowed to invoke this as the GM. I'm not going to remember what you have. You have to tell me. So I pretty explicitly put it on the players to remind me of that stuff. Or I make standees and have it printed on the back, and I put those up on my little screen. I do that in my L5R game. That's been very helpful, actually. I should do a video on the usefulness of standees. But yeah, if you're going to be an honorable gamer, you've got to manage your own stuff, because otherwise you're putting an unnecessary load on others. The guy running my Twilight Imperium game is here, so I guess I'm going to go play that. Bye.